Peter is the head of Lego's global online community. And so what's interesting about Peter is watching him meet people, and he tells them what he does, and they say, first of all, is that a real job? Can you actually get paid to do this for Lego? And then the second thing is, always, they say, oh, I have an idea for you. I have to tell you about this wonderful idea that Lego has to do. And so I'm going to let Peter explain why, one, he does have a real job, and two, how they deal with sort of this massive, constant inflow of ideas and enthusiasm from people that don't work for them. All right, so welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all showing up. I have quite a slide deck for you. Sean did a small introduction of me, but I just wanted to do my own introduction. And I think just to show you that this is actually me with my Lego, and my sister is trying to steal it. So this is like a lifelong passion for me. Finally, also a public service announcement. I'll be at South by Southwest, and we'll do a what's called a Mindstorms Hackathon with Google on Rainey Street on the 11th. And that's basically a place where you get to work with the Mindstorms product, try to do different things with it, work it, tweak it, and also do a race with these Mindstorms robots that you're going to create. So that's just a public service announcement. Without further ado, I want to talk about these three overall subjects, because that's kind of what defines how the state of the nation is for the Lego community. So everyone knows here that I work with what we call the Lego community, which is mainly 13+ Lego fans who love Lego for what Lego is. These guys have a tremendous impact across the world, and I'll cover this in this presentation. First thing, the unstoppable passion. The first thing is, when you work with social and digital media, this is the usual model you end up having. You have all these small people, they're discussing, and then you come and then you seed conversation into the midst, and then they start talking about what you want them to talk about. That was what when I started at Lego 2.5 years ago, this was how I viewed the world. And after a couple of months, this happened. We got a letter, and this is here, from a French Facebook community that was called "It Hurts Like Blank When I Step on Lego Bricks." And basically it says in French, I'm not going to translate all of it. Dear Lego, I have this Facebook community. We're 347,000 people strong. It's called "It Hurts Like Blank When You Step on Lego." You've caused us all this pain through all these years, and we would like an apology. So I thought, now I have the perfect chance of showing how I can kind of come with my own thing into the mix here and show everybody and be the new social hero. So the thing we did a very, very brief short video where we said that sorry about all this, but we will this year put out another 32 billion Lego bricks that will crowd your floors. And we had a solution where you could walk around with base plates on it. And I thought, this is the greatest thing ever done. It's going to take off. And I sat Friday at home, had a glass of wine, and I looked at the Twitter feed, and it was going crazy. But the challenge was, it was not my idea, it was something else. It was this. It was a Lego printer that a guy who hooked up with some Mindstorms gears, some technique, he made a printer that can kind of print anything with Lego from a computer. And that was what everybody was talking about. I got like 60,000 views on combined platforms. This guy, he got 2.2 million views in a matter of a couple of weeks. So he totally blew all of my plans of becoming this new social media hero for Lego. And it also spilled over in like Wired and all sorts of things. So that taught us a very, very important lesson. It's actually more interesting what the users talk about around your product than what you can talk about yourself. So is Anna here yet? Or hasn't she come yet? Sorry about that. I had a talk with a scholar from NYU last week who's called Anna Akbari. And the thing that was interesting, she said, well, it's great you work at Lego and so on. And I was in this office space with a lot of other guys, and they actually have the Lego 2 here. And I thought, oh my goodness, she has one of these. And Anna, of course, didn't know what it was, but this is the Hugman project done with these small men being placed at all these different locations on Manhattan. And it's done by this guy, who's a New York native. He's called Nathan Sawaya, and he's a Lego artist, and he exhibits around the world. He currently has an exhibition running in Australia. And the idea with these Hugmen that Anna actually, I don't know if she lended it or borrowed it is about going out into the public space and putting these hug men around there and watching what people do and how they interact with them. And you can see people, this woman is taking pictures of them. A lot of other people, they kind of just looked at them, pointed at them, interacted with them. And of course, some people, they got them and brought them home, and that was also the point. So this is kind of an art project that goes into urban space, but also then back into people's homes. But the thing that's interesting with Nathan, and now I bring up Nathan because he lives here in New York City, on Manhattan, in fact. He used to be a Wall Street lawyer, but now he's a full-time Lego artist. He does art. He does things for people that want a 3D model of themselves in Lego. He has his own Jeopardy category. So this is kind of the social reach some of these people that use the brick as a creative medium has, and it's quite impressive. I think this is probably his most famous thing. This has been copied a lot of times. Artists use it as a cover of an album and so on. So he has a significant reach. Also, just to show you a bit more about all this unstoppable passion, some of these ideas is just 3 quick cases from the last couple of months. This happened when on Big Bang Theory, this guy wanted to be an astronaut. He kind of ended up not being it, and he turned his back to the Lego and kind of were doing the terrible, terrible thing that happened to all Lego fans. When they get about 12, 13 years old, they've been building with bricks since they were kids, but then they discover the 2 main antagonists in terms of Lego. It's women and it's beer. And that's what usually happens. And that's when people go into what our fans call the dark ages. That's when you don't build with bricks anymore. So the Simpsons, they have this new clone brand. It looks like our logo, but Homer looks scared, so that's good. And also, just to show you an answer back from the Lego group to our community. This is kind of a Vic Viper, which is one of our new Alien Conquest sets. And we've, in fact, put a logo of a deceased fan on the thing to kind of, it's a way of innuendo communicating with our community. And of course, kids, they just think it's a cool logo, but it's actually the call name in the Lego community and his logo that we've put on a spaceship. So that's kind of how we also communicate with them in a very subtle manner. So let's talk a bit about connection. The first thing, one of the key things that came out of all this Mindstorms and the Mindstorms hacking that happened back in the first year, late 90s and then in the 2000s was we have an internal discussion. We own the trademark, but do we really own the brand? Because the thing this is a thing I usually say, and it's a big discussion, we can control the trademark, and if you take the Lego logo and put it on your own box, we will unleash the hounds, and the lawyers will chase you down and bite you. But if you just love this for what it is, then it's kind of we don't own that. So we see it like there's an interrelation with the Lego group. Basically, by the way, from legal, I'm not allowed to call it this, but this is what the fans call the Lego group, TLG. But there's an interrelation around the brand with the Lego group and the users, but also a lot of things happen here between the users, the sense-making of how the Lego brand is perceived. So we kind of say if the brand is not in the mind of the consumer, it's not really anywhere and it doesn't have any value. So this is highly valuable, and it's kind of a game changer in a lot of ways for working with a brand and looking at a brand. And of course, as you all who have studied communities, and especially the Harley-Davidson community, when you get people getting tattoos, then things are pretty serious. So also, the next thing is we can't control the passion. People use Lego for all sorts of things that are not in line with our brand values. They do Occupy Legoland. They've made a mock set of the city looters in London. They do things like Second World War things and guns and so on that are totally out of bounds of what we do in Lego. And this is great because the fans actually have their own domain in which they can work with the bricks and do great things. So that's very, very exciting and exciting to observe. Of course, we can't endorse it as such, but we still look at it, of course. All right, just to show you also the way a very strong community can affect your brand and your PR. I know probably, is there anybody from brands who've tried that, journalists like you, Eric, that really can't, they don't use capital letters, they call your brand something wrong. When these things happen, this is the thing, I think it's from, this is from Gizmodo. This is one of our new things that was called Life of George that was shown. The thing that's interesting with Life of George is it's a great thing, an interactive thing where you build things and take pictures of it. Kids love it and parents love it too. But the interesting thing in this case is, the guy he uses some word called Legos, L-E-G-O-S. And well, we in the group, we don't really know what that means. But he talks about Lego, and then he mentioned this word. And then within a couple of minutes, you know, the fans, they rush to the rescue. You have like fans saying, I really hate how Americans can call multiple Lego blocks Legos. And, you know, I just thought I wanted to correct the idiot that blah, 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 blah. So the fans really take this our branding seriously. Maybe I would like, you know, a bit more, you know, friendly tone when this is happening. Of course, you know, it's very difficult because other people answer back with their fond childhood memories. Like, you know, even though I thought you're probably right, I'm still going to call it Legos. And it's like Legos, 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 Legos. All but, you know, these guys, the fans, they don't give up as easy because, you know, it's hard to argue when people end up quoting Saxon grammar and all sorts of rules on why it's called Lego bricks and not Legos. So this is some of the things that, you know, that's really funny. And we even have examples where they kind of chase certain bloggers, journalists around on their blog saying every time they make a spelling error or something if they don't do this right. Of course, this is not something we endorse, but it's still very funny. So the really key thing for us in working with the fans, you know, a lot of you guys probably are community managers working with them in a digital context, but go out and meet the fans. That is our kind of killer application in this. This is pictures of most of our senior management, including the owner of Lego and our CEO, that on a regular basis, many times a year, go out and meet fans, discuss with fans, have conversations with them, meet them in person. Because that's kind of a way of like taking that veil away you have when you are in the company. I'm just going to tell you a small story just to show how close we are. You know, I had some Lego fans who incidentally also work in the plastic industry, and one of them, he owns a plastic factory. He came to Bill in Denmark, our head office where I'm at, and had a discussion with me on a lot of fan issues and all sorts of stuff. And then the fans have a thing where they usually go around, stalking around Billund at night and looking in our old facilities, because sometimes you can actually see a new product or something, and that's always exciting. And I, of course, asked them, guys, did you go around all our facilities to see if you could see something? And he said, yeah, we did, but we didn't see anything, but we saw your CEO's office. I said, well, duh, you know, it looks like my office. There's a lot of Lego, and he has a bit more kids' drawings than I have. And I said, how come you could kind of pick that out? Well, that was very easy, because when they met them 4 years prior, they gave him a small kind of thing they designed, and that was on a shelf in an office. So of course, it was his office. And I went there the next day, and yes, it was on the office shelf. So we have a very, very strong relation with people in our community on these kind of things. Just to give you a bit of theory on how we look at our community. We have a way of looking at it that's called the Consumer Affinity Pyramid. It's a tool has been developed since 3-4 years ago, and we constantly try to develop it. It's the further you get up, the more affinity you have for Lego. You know, you start down, if that's a covered households, that's probably most of you. You have some bricks somewhere in your house, maybe under the bed. Then you go up to active households. You've bought something within the last 12 months. And then further and further up into loyalty programs and so on. And when you get to the top, that is when you are lead users and user partners. These are the people who create tremendous, amazing amount of great stuff. So the challenge is, when people get up here, how do you work with them? And that's some of the stuff I'm going to talk about now. So this is kind of the way we've kind of coined it, a new consumer-centric way, or that's what I at least call it. When we work with the top of the pyramid, these guys they spend a lot of money on bricks, they're very engaging and so on, but what can you do with them? So it's all about closing the feedback loop. We built some bricks, it goes into a community on hundreds of blogs, thousands of websites, and then they create something like this. You know, this is actually built totally out of Lego. These amazing things that are mind-blowing. So the thing we want to do is we want to close this loop back to the company so we can give them even more interesting stuff to do. And one of the ways we do it is we have what's called the Lego Ambassador Program. It means that we have currently 70 ambassadors all across the world. Each ambassador represents a group of Lego fans that are organized, and the ambassadors has a direct link into the company, so they can kind of discuss with me and with a lot of my colleagues. But this means that we are actually capable of, through an influence network, we influence the few that can influence the many. Because the challenge is, if you're, let's say, Procter & Gamble and you have, I don't know, 1 billion consumers, how can you have a meaningful conversation and a meaningful relation? Well, basically, it's difficult, but you can do, if you influence the right people, they can help you move the influence down the affinity pyramid, so to speak. The best practices for working with these, and if there's like one slide you should remember, take a picture of this one. because this is some very, very basic rules. Some of them are a bit overlapping, but it's about setting expectations, being reliable. This is kind of basically the same things you should do if you are a friend or a family member. It's basic common sense. It's easy to say, extremely hard to do. I think probably one of the things that are the most controversial, and these are the two bottom ones. Limit secrecy. Because if you end up like working with product development for us and work with us in some co-creation process, it gives you a lot of value because it's fun, you get to see the company from the inside, but it doesn't give you any value when you go home if you can't tell what you've done and you're like covered in NDAs and non-disclosure and release forms and so on. It's kind of like James Bond would have a hard time picking up girls if you couldn't tell people he's a secret agent. It's the same thing. So try and limit secrecy, and also fair compensation. That's difficult because when you start compensating people with money or with things, then it's very, very hard to have that what's called intrinsic motivation. That's motivation and pure passion. So if you start paying people for having their passion, you crowd out all the real excitement and the thing they do on their own. So that's important. But if it turns into work, of course you need to pay people for it. So the first thing, or the first of the cases we do, is this one. This is the Lego Kuzo. It's our crowdsourcing platform. This basically means that if you have an idea, you could submit it here. If you gather 10,000 votes, we'll review it for production, and if it makes sense, then we'll put it into production. That's very exciting. We've been working on this since somewhere in the 90s with a Japanese company called Elephant Design, who are great, by the way. So these are the three products that has been put out now, up until now. This here is sold out. It's Shinkai 6500, a deep water exploration vessel from Japan. That's also, Kuzo has been developed in Japan and was predominantly working in Japan for a long, long time, until we relaunched it on a more, Anglo-Saxon, European, Western European platform this October. We did the Hayabusa, which is a space exploration vessel. And then we have the big one that's coming up this summer, the Lego Minecraft. It's currently open for pre-order online, and it's going to be sold out so fast, I guarantee it. But the thing that's really, really interesting here is I think I talked with Eric and a couple of guys out before. If I took all of you and I got all the best Lego designers and our top management and all the social media gurus in a room, and we did kind of a vote and worked on it, we would not come up with any of these three ideas. And the reason for that is basically it doesn't make sense. The first one, it's like a cut-over whale with an orange hat from Japan. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. But the thing each of these does in their own unique way, they tap into a certain community somewhere online. And when you combine the Lego passion with another community that has a lot of passion, then great things happen. I'm just going to show you a thing. When we started with the Shinkai, it took 420 days for it to reach the number of votes it should have. The Hayabusa was a bit more. This guy with the Shinkai, he went around to like fairs and passed out leaflets and all sorts of stuff to reach this. The Hayabusa did it in only 7 days. Anyone who could kind of have an idea of how long it took the Minecraft to reach the number of votes it should have?
1 day.
A little later, 2 days. 48 hours. They just people need to get up, because when Notch, who's the guy who founded Minecraft, or the Mojang company, started off, it just needed a bit of time to pick up. But about 48 hours was the time it needed to hit the 10,000 votes. Because basically, guys, we had to change it when we went more global from 1,000 votes to 10,000 votes, or else we'd have to review a lot of things for review all the time. So let's talk about the social objects and what our fans are talking about. I think this is also some of the great stuff. First of all, this is kind of the bragging slide. It shows you that we have almost 900,000 videos on YouTube, 1.2 million pictures on Flickr. The thing that's really interesting when you look at the Lego community and where it's different from a lot of other communities is you think 1.2 million pictures is a lot on Flickr. The main repository of the Lego community is called Brickshelf, and it has about almost 4 million unique Lego pictures. So that's kind of interesting. But these guys are extremely passionate. And also, if you go up to and search for the word Lego, at least a couple of months back, structure all the videos that are about Lego after the number of views, you have to go to page 19 to find something that doesn't have a million plus votes. And a lot of these, almost none of them are sponsored or bought by the Lego group. It's fan stuff. So Let's take a look at one of the social objects. Could we roll the video here? I just think you need a bit of comic relief. This is one of my favorites. And sorry for laughing off my own jokes when this goes on, even though I didn't do it. Let's see what happens. Oh, well, I will not. Don't worry out there in the room. Yeah, this will not work. You can see it yourself. It's basically, it's called Death Star Cantina. It's a stop-motion movie done on an Eddie Izzard sketch. It's amazingly funny. It's even more funny than Eddie Izzard himself, and that says kind of a thing. So this is fun. But the interesting thing that happened with this late last year was, currently the fans are crossing over into the mainstream. This social object that's done by a LEGO fan is now on the Blu-ray extended edition as extra material. So that's kind of fun. So the fans are crossing over into the mainstream, and even I think it's the Engadget article here that kind of, it talks a bit about Star Wars, and then there's like 2 paragraphs of, wow, this is so funny, this video, and I had such a laugh, go and watch it. So it might be also that it's the mainstream that's crossing over to the fans. I think all this geek culture and I think how many people here think of themselves as a geek? Yeah, well, there's a few here, only a few, good. But, these are some of the people that within the last 18 months have been outwardly spoken that they do something with LEGO. My favorite is probably David Beckham, that on a TV show that was transmitted to 90 million people through some Cisco thing, he ends up like getting asked the question, what do you want to do if you weren't playing football? And he talks about LEGO, and Kat Deely, who's interviewing, tried to all the way push him over into architecture and stuff, and he just talks about LEGO and what set he bought. And the set he bought, of course, rose like 700% in sales the day after. So, and even, we had the president here is on doing, or meeting the LEGO, first LEGO League champions in the White House, actually. So that was a lot of that. But all this excitement, we've thought a lot about how could we work with this, and maybe we should try and give something back. But it's always very, very difficult when you're a big company, a colossus with all sorts of guidelines and legal things and constraints and business objectives, to try and work with fans who just have pure passion for what they do, and they move very, very fast. So what are we going to do about it? Let's take a look at the relevance in the next step. The thing that I wanted to do when I joined LEGO was try to connect some of all these lost LEGO souls out there. Try to create this snowball of inspiration that would just continue downhill and roll over anybody, so everybody would just wake up in the morning and say, well, what am I going to do today? LEGO. So the idea was we took the top of the pyramid and we tried to work with these people and leverage what they do towards the broader masses, celebrate these people, give them a platform of where they can amplify what they do. So we don't talk about community management, we talk about community amplification. Let's see, I think this is interesting because this will just show you a bit of the new initiative. Could we roll this video, please?
This brick has completely changed my life. LEGO brick started life as a toy, but it has become so much more than that. Today it's a medium for creativity with fans of all ages, backgrounds, and interests, all expressing a passion for the LEGO brick every day.
Could we turn the sound down a bit?
Sharing our dreams about kids. Now it's fun. Say hello to the brick. A place where all the awesome creations from LEGO fans can shine and be discovered. Celebrate.
I'm just going to do like that. Sorry, the sound was a bit bad, but it's online so you can actually see it. The project is called Rebrick. It's basically creating a social media hub where you can share and distribute LEGO-related content. It's not an uploading platform like you would see on Flickr, but it's all about moving the things from different places. It's about gathering great LEGO content from, let's say, Flickr, Mark Page's YouTube, and then pushing it out through social media channels to hit the lower part of our affinity pyramid, the people with latent LEGO affinity. So that's something we've done, and we're still in a beta. We launched it, or launched the open beta in December last year, and it's taken quite off a bit, but it's just exciting. There's so much content there, and the fans have really loved it. So just to sum it up, just to make sure I don't go over time. The idea here with the Rebrick project is basically the ideas and apples. It's about exchanging of ideas. And if it's 2 apples you exchange, you both end up with 1 apple. But if it's ideas, every time you exchange, you end up with 2 ideas. And that's kind of the basic thing we do with this project and the things we do with our community. And this is the final slide, and I'll be happy to take a couple of questions and so on. And with the immortal words of William Shatner on the mock that's created for him. Any questions? Yep, here.
You talked about your ambassador program. How do you identify who the right people to connect you to the broader audience is?
That's a very, very good question. The way we do it is, you know, when a fan group has had a certain life, when they have been organized, and when they've taken contact to the LEGO group, then they get to appoint their own ambassador. Because if we go out and like cherry pick and say, this person should be the ambassador, then we crowd a lot of people out. So they have to figure them out themselves. And that is not, sometimes, you know, fan groups get split in 2 and everybody say, well, this is a bad fan group and this is a good fan group and so on. But they have to do this themselves. We don't kind of want to be the head of the schoolyard telling people what they can do and what they can't do. So that's a very, very good question. But that's how we do it. We let the fans do it themselves. Yep, down there.
So how about talking about the... so you've got a lot of great publicity out there. How about some of the negative discussion that goes on, or the more mixed discussion? The thing that I'm specifically thinking about is the recent release of some of the Lego for Girls.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, it's strange that you say Lego for girls, because I think all Lego is for girls, as well as for boys. But the challenge has been, you know, when the girls are not buying it, we try to be innovative and do new things. And I know there's been a whole bunch of things, and Lego shouldn't do this, and bring back beautiful, and so on. But you know, remember, we're not discontinuing other lines. This is just a way of trying to get the girls into the hobby. And this is kind of totally my own thing. If that gets the girls to build Mindstorms, A-okay. And remember, the last couple of years, the first Lego League has been won by all girls teams. So girls can build Lego. I hope that answers the question in kind of a very media-trained kind of way.
I would agree with your answer. My question is more, how do you as a company internally deal with that kind of chatter? Because it's clearly going on.
Well, first of all, you know, as all other companies, you know, it's always, you get a bit surprised when people say something, why do you do this, and why is it good, and so on. But you know, we as a company, we embrace it, and we also listen to the negative conversations. A thing that's just analog to what you're saying. Our fans, when I go and discuss with them, like if I sit in a room with fans, only fans, they will be very, very critical. They would say, this set is not that good, how come you're doing this? The building experience is not as good as you did with this and this. As soon as one of you guys come in, the whole thing changes. And they'll say, well, oh, everything is nice and dandy. So I think it's for us to go out and listen, and also, you know, look at what we could do differently. There might be some things that we could do in our communication and understanding, but you know, it's very difficult, you know, when you have this big social media thing that is going on and everybody is saying this and petitions here and petitions there. You need to be respectful, because it's not that they haven't got a point. We just need to kind of, we're also a business, and that's also, you know, the most unethical thing a company can do is go out of business. So we need to make sure that these things are in line. But I can't comment directly on it. Sorry about that. Other questions? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks a bunch.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop Peter.